You know, we've all heard of the colossal tombs built for pharaohs like Khufu and Ramses. But the final resting places of Egypt's most powerful, literally godlike female rulers, well, they are still completely missing. Welcome to this historical explainer. Today, we're skipping right past the basic history lessons you learned in school. Instead, we are jumping straight into the perilous, incredibly high-stakes fieldwork that's happening right now to unearth these legendary women.
Okay, so here is our roadmap for today. We're going to start by looking at the broader hunt for Egypt's lost queens. Then we'll dive into Cleopatra and her brilliant diplomacy, Hatshepsut's sheer power, Nefertiti's hidden reign, and finally, we'll wrap up by unearthing some of the absolute latest archaeological secrets.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Hunting Egypt's Lost Queens, and where this whole mystery begins. Right this second, out across the blistering sands of Egypt, from the sunken coastal capital of Alexandria all the way down south to the mountainous, rugged terrain of Luxor, archaeologists are engaged in unprecedented, high-stakes excavations to track them down.
Now, we really have to keep in mind that ancient Egypt spans a truly staggering amount of time. Just look at the massive gaps between these queens. We've got Seti Bor way back deep in the Old Kingdom around 2400 BC. Then jump forward to Hatshepsut and Nefertiti in the New Kingdom, and then all the way down to Cleopatra in 51 BC. Actually, to put that into perspective, it's always kind of wild to remember that Cleopatra lived closer in time to the invention of the iPhone than she did to the building of the Great Pyramids.
And if we're going to understand them, we really have to unlearn all those old Hollywood misconceptions. For so long, history's painted these women as, helpless wives or just mere seductresses. But as we pull the actual reality straight from the dirt, we see them for what they truly were: brilliant diplomatic strategists, fierce religious revolutionaries, and highly independent pharaohs who ruled over the most powerful empire on earth.
That brings us perfectly to Section 2, Cleopatra, the final pharaoh, looking at her diplomacy and her eventual defeat. See, she absolutely wasn't just the tragic lover portrayed in those later myths. She was a political genius. This was a ruler who spoke 9 languages. She was a master strategist who successfully managed a highly complex hybrid empire made up of both Greeks and Egyptians.
But all of her brilliance brings us to one of the most enduring mysteries in the history of archaeology. Where does the last pharaoh actually lie? After she was defeated by Octavian and committed her legendary suicide, her tomb was completely lost to history. Today, though, Dominican archaeologist Kathleen Martinez is on a relentless hunt at the Taposiris Magna Temple complex. This is a site dedicated to the goddess Isis, a deity whom Cleopatra famously embodied.
Finding her, however, requires some incredibly dangerous, edge-of-your-seat fieldwork. First up, Kathleen's team uses acoustic imaging, basically using geophones to record microtremors to detect massive, hidden voids right beneath the ancient temple. To actually reach those voids, they have to descend a precarious hand-built ladder down a dizzying 25-foot shaft. And once they hit the bottom, Kathleen has to navigate hundreds of feet of pitch-black, flooded, and literally snake-filled tunnels that were carved by hand through solid bedrock.
For Kathleen, though, all that danger is entirely worth it. She says, and I quote, "I am about to solve this mystery." She outsmarted the most powerful army on Earth. You can just feel the absolute passion and urgency in her work. She's recently located a secret entrance hidden behind some subterranean rubble, and she believes with complete certainty that Cleopatra deliberately concealed herself down there to escape the wrath of the conquering Romans.
And the artifacts being pulled out of the ground perfectly back up the reality of Cleopatra's sophisticated world. We're finding amazing remnants of her multicultural capital in Alexandria. Down in the ancient city of Philadelphia, archaeologists have unearthed Greek-style painted portraits resting directly on top of traditionally wrapped Egyptian mummies. Back at Taposiris Magna, mummies of the elite are being discovered with tongues cast from pure 22-karat gold, which were designed to help them speak to the gods. These artifacts prove, for sure, that she united these cultures harmoniously, which is a really sharp contrast to the chaotic downfall we usually associate with her reign.
Now, let's rewind a bit for Section 3, Hatshepsut, Propaganda and Power. We're talking about the female king. Jumping back to the New Kingdom, way before Cleopatra, there was Hatshepsut. She was a queen who grabbed total power in a strictly male-dominated world and managed to rule as a true pharaoh for 2 decades of unbelievable prosperity.
Hatshepsut built one of the absolute grandest mortuary temples in all of Egypt. But what's truly fascinating is how she chose to portray herself. Her statues show her physically wielding the traditional male symbols of power, the crook, the flail, even the divine pharaoh's false beard. But if you read her carved cartouche, that's the oval-shaped box enclosing a royal name, she actually isn't hiding her gender at all. It very clearly reads daughter of Re. She was basically just adopting the required visual symbols of absolute authority to get the job done.
It was just sheer, brilliant political propaganda to legitimize transitioning from a queen regent for her infant nephew into a full-fledged king. She literally claimed divine birthright on her temple walls. She had them carved to show the supreme god Amun impregnating her mother. She even went as far as depicting herself as a fierce sphinx trampling the enemies of Egypt. It's honestly an absolute masterclass in using religious narrative to cement female power.
Moving right along to Section 4, Nefertiti, the hidden pharaoh, and a look at a religious revolution. Let's dive into the incredibly chaotic and fascinating reign of Nefertiti and her husband, Akhenaten. Together, these two basically turned Egyptian society completely upside down. They outlawed the traditional pantheon of gods and forced this radical, highly controversial shift to worshiping a single sun god, the Aten.
To cement this new religion, they fully abandoned the old capital and built a massive new utopian city called Amarna from scratch. The sheer, blinding speed of this construction was a huge mystery to us, until archaeologists at a remote quarry discovered a simple plumb bob and these perfectly cut talatop blocks. These were small, 60-kilogram sandstone blocks that could easily be carried on the shoulder of a single worker. This brilliantly simple logistical innovation allowed Nefertiti and Akhenaten to construct their entirely new world in record time.
But as you might guess, their religious revolution ultimately failed. When Akhenaten died, the old religion rushed right back in, and their shiny utopian city was completely abandoned. Later, their images were violently hacked out of the stone by their enemies. And that leaves us with a massive, glaring question. What actually happened to Nefertiti? Did she just disappear? Or, as some newly discovered ancient graffiti suggests, did she actually survive her husband, change her name, and succeed him as the sole pharaoh of Egypt?
Well, if she did become pharaoh, her tomb really should be somewhere in the famous Valley of the Kings. And this brings us to a frankly shocking theory regarding her stepson Tutankhamun. Tut's famously cramped tomb has always been a bit of an oddity. First, it turns right, which is standard for a queen, rather than left for a king. On top of that, his nested coffins actually feature female headdresses. Even his iconic golden death mask has earring holes. And beneath his name, researchers have actually found the hidden erased cartouche of Nefertiti herself. So it's incredibly possible that Tutankhamun, who died suddenly at just 18, was hurriedly buried in a tomb that was originally prepared for Pharaoh Nefertiti, meaning one of history's most famous women might still be hidden right beneath our feet.
Finally, let's look at Section 5. Unearthing the final secrets, where the dirt yields answers. Let's bring this all together. All across the country, these fragmented digs, these tiny puzzles of stone and bone, are finally piecing together a much, much broader geopolitical story of incredible female ambition and ingenuity.
We are quite literally unearthing the deep roots of this power. Up in Saqqara, archaeologists are braving the collapsing, dangerously unstable corridors of a 4,400-year-old pyramid. It's the largest one ever built for a queen, and it was recently identified as belonging to Queen Setibor from the Old Kingdom. Getting inside means risking thousands of tons of ancient stone caving in on you, but uncovering her untouched burial chamber, that proves that monumental female power in Egypt didn't just pop up late in the game, it started from the very beginning.
Over in Alexandria, archaeologist Calliope Limnios Papacosta perfectly captures the spirit of this entire hunt. She was pumping out floodwaters day and night, and she uncovered a single black Roman street cobble that proves she's finally on the right path to Cleopatra's royal quarter. As she puts it, you don't understand how a person can be happy finding just a black stone. This is archaeology. And honestly, this is exactly why we should care about this exhausting, painstaking work. Finding a simple black stone or just a tiny fragment of paint isn't just about cataloging old artifacts, it's about fundamentally rewriting our understanding of history and elevating the brilliant women who actually shaped it.
So, with acoustic voids mapping out secret entrances and forgotten